you have cancer of the liver. 95% of all people diagnosed of having cancer of the liver are dead within 6 months. So what I want you to do is I want you to go home. I want you to prepare your husband. I want you to prepare your family. I want you to prepare your will, and I want you to prepare to die. How many cells just heard that message? All of them. Do you know that cells respect authority? And can you imagine the rumors that are going on inside the body right now? Hey, did you hear what they said? That guy is an authority, and did you hear what he's told us? He said that this factory is shutting down in 6 months. What are you going to do about it? Well, some of them will go like this. I'm going to fight to the bitter end. Others will say, oh my goodness, if the factory is going to be shut down, I'm out of a job in 6 months. I am going to go on strike. The effects of stress on the immune functions was studied in a group of hospitalized depressed patients in non-depressed controls. A 50% reduction in the activity of the killer cells was found in both the depressed patients and in the control subjects who were experiencing chronic emotional stress. Now let's go back to the definition of cancer. Cancer is a symptom of an inefficient immune system, meaning that the immune system is not really doing what it's supposed to be doing in the first place. And suddenly, the body is told, the cells are told, that you've got cancer and that the factory is shutting down in 6 months. Half of the cells go on strike. They simply shut down. They forget to function. They no longer are working. They're no longer energetic. Well, if the immune system is already having problems, and then 50% of the white blood cells that are available no longer work, it's little wonder why a person doesn't die 6 months later. But it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's the medical doctor that caused the death by saying, you're going to die in 6 months. You see, that happened to my mother. I was there. I was in the oncologist's office listening to him tell her that she was going to die in 6 months because she had cancer of the liver. We knew she had cancer of the liver. We could feel it. It was as big as a softball right there. And the doctor says, you've got cancer of the liver. You're going to die in 6 months. Do you know that 18 months later we were in Hawaii snorkeling? The doctor who pronounced her death sentence died 6 months later. Cancer. Oh my goodness, what are we talking about? Do you know that Norman Cousins, a medical journalist, has this to say on the subject? Current studies show that serious diagnosis can cause a patient to panic or to lapse into hopelessness and depression. We know too that such reactions can interfere with a treatment and impair the immune system, whose effectiveness is vital, especially in combating the threatening disease. Now listen to this. American people, somewhere along the way, have been misinformed on how to interpret their own body's information. We have separated ourselves from the essential knowledge about the working of the human body, unaware of the resources waiting to be put to use. Now, you see, our scientists are beginning to study cell communication. They call it psychoimmunity, or psychoneurological immunity, depending on how many letters of the alphabet you want to put in the name. Psychoneurological immunity is simply where you imagine the white blood cells being knights in shining armor, and the dragon, or the cancer, is out there. And every morning you visualize the knights in shining armor going out and fighting the dragon. And they found that the dragon, or the cancer, just slowly disappears. It's known as psychoimmunity. You simply tell the cells what you want them to do. But is this new? No. It's just called by different names, isn't it? What about the term faith healing? How about prayer? When you say, Dear Lord, help me to be healthy. How many cells just heard that message?
All of them.
All of them. And you know, the most important thing that anybody can do is get up in the morning and look at yourself in the mirror and say, I am healthy, I am happy. Because all of the cells heard that. And when they get that message, they in turn say, hey, we're healthy, we're happy, let's continue doing what we're supposed to do. And they continue to keep the body healthy the way it's supposed to. Cell communication is real. And it doesn't make any difference what you call it. It has worked over and over and over again, and many, many times it has worked, and it'll continue to work. All we have to do is learn how to use it. Cell communication is real. The next part of the healthy cell concept is cell environment. Oh my goodness, cell environment. What do we mean by cell environment? Well, the best way to get to this is, what do we mean by people environment? There's a difference between cell environment and people environment. People environment happens to be air, gas. That's what we live in. Our environment is air. Okay, and we're concerned about the pollution of the air. What do we mean by cell environment? What do cells live in?
Fluid.
What does it live in?
Fluid.
Fluid. Yep. Some people have tried to tell us that the cells live in blood. Cells do not live in blood. You've only got about 5 to 8 pints of blood in your body, and it's only found in one place, and that's inside the cardiovascular system, which is a closed circuit system. The blood never reaches the cells of the body. It only carries the oxygen and nutrients to the capillaries, where the oxygen and nutrients escapes through sieve-like holes into the lymph fluid. You've got 3 times as much lymph fluid in the body as the blood, and the lymph fluid surrounds all of the cells. All of the cells of the body depend upon the circulation of this lymph fluid. This is the water. We like to think of this as an aquarium. We call it an aquarium rather than an ocean, because an ocean is happenstance. An aquarium is highly controlled. You've got thousands of control mechanisms inside the body. These control mechanisms make sure the temperature is at the right 98.6. The pH balance is just right. The glucose is just where it's supposed to be. Who controls all of this control mechanisms? No, we don't. We're not smart enough. We don't have enough information. The cells control these control mechanisms. You see, when you were first born, you didn't have to think, now wait, I have just been born into this brand new world. My temperature is 98.6, so therefore I had better. You see, you didn't even have to worry about that, because that is something that was automatic. The cells were extremely intelligent, and they kept the temperature at 98.6. And they kept everything else the way they're supposed to keep them. So you see, we rely upon the intelligence of these cells and what they're doing. Actually, we only have one thing that we have to do when we're talking about cell environment. All we have to do is replace the water that leaks out of the aquarium. That's all. And we lose from 5 to 8 cups of water a day. We lose water through the urine, through sweat, and through breathing. And so all we have to do is replace the water with pure water. That's all we have to do, with pure water. Do you know, ladies and gentlemen, we are failing miserable at this very simple task, because we don't replace the water with pure water. I could talk about the insecticides and pesticides that accidentally get into the water, or I could talk about the industrial waste that constantly goes into the water, or I could talk about the spills and a few other things like this. But I don't want to talk about those things, because those things are accidental. What I want to talk about are those things that we humans are putting into the water on purpose. We're talking about premeditated, you see. There are a couple of chemicals that we're putting into the water on purpose. Can you think of any of these chemicals we are actually putting into the water on purpose? Chlorine. All right, chlorine. Of course we're putting chlorine in the water, aren't we? I mean, why do we put chlorine in the water in the first place? To kill bacteria, right? What's bacteria? Cells. So we know that chlorine is a known cell killer. We're not denying this at all. Chlorine is a known cell killer. In fact, it is so good as a cell killer. What did we use in the First World War to get rid of our enemies? Chlorine gas. Did it work? It sure did. It worked so well that we passed an international law at the Geneva Convention telling all of our enemies that it was illegal to kill an American citizen with chlorine gas. No fair. You can use bombs, bullets, and hand grenades. That's fair. You cannot use chlorine gas. We'd rather do that ourselves. So what do we put into our swimming pools before we dive in? Chlorine, of course. And what does it do to the hair on our head? Destroys it, right? What about the skin tissue, the delicate skin tissue of the eyes? What does it do to those? Just destroys the eyes, the skin tissue of the eyes. And what about the outside surface of the body? Yeah, it dries it up, kills the cells. You see, that's what's happening. Tell me, does the killing stop at the lips? No. So every time you drink chlorinated water, what are you doing to the cells inside the body? Destroying them on purpose, premeditated. Tell me, ladies and gentlemen, who has the responsibility of getting rid of dead cells? Larry Lymphocyte, right? Hey, I thought Larry Lymphocyte's job was to get rid of the mutant cells. But you see, we drink chlorinated water day in and day out. And we're killing the cells inside the body. And it's Larry's responsibility to get rid of the dead cells. Do you suppose that we're actually overworking this poor guy? Yeah. And do you suppose that is the reason every municipality that has chlorine in their drinking water has an increase in incidence of cancer by 20%? Can you see what we're doing? We are our own worst enemy. And to make things even worse, we're compounding the entire problem because we don't stop at just one chemical, do we? We have another one. And what is that one? Fluoride. Fluoride. Now, I'm going to expose some things about fluoride. Contrary to popular belief, let's identify fluoride for just a few minutes. First of all, why have we been told we have fluoride in the drinking water? Prevent tooth decay. You were told that too, right? So was I. What is fluoride? Why do we have it in the drinking water? You know, this one was really confusing to me because when I began to study fluoride and I found out how insidious the poison was, I couldn't imagine how scientists in their right mind or even in their wrong mind could even figure out why you would put fluoride in the drinking water. Well, let's see. The first thing we have to do is we have to go to a group of people who are convinced that fluoride is good for us. This is published by the American Dental Association. All right? And the title of this is Fluoride Helps Prevent Tooth Decay. So this is what they would have us believe. I'll open it up and I'll read several things from this simple brochure. Today, more than 120 million people, representing over 50% of the population, are served by fluoridated water supplies in the United States. 50% of the people in the United States have fluoridated water in their water supplies. Congratulations, they've done a good job. Now, as a medical journalist, I want to find out what fluoride really is. So I am going to go to resources. How about medical physiology? It's a book that all dentists have in their library. Let's open it up to where we can find fluoride. You do that by opening up the index, finding the word fluoride, and then opening it up, and you find that it talks about fluoride. All right? I am going to read several statements to see if the propaganda on this piece of literature agrees with what they can get out of this book. Fluoride is also a natural component of tooth enamel and bone. In other words, fluoride is something that's necessary. It's part of metabolism, right? Fluoride does not seem to be a necessary element for metabolism. Well, fluoride helps teeth become more resilient to decay by strengthening tooth enamel. Fluoride does not make the teeth themselves stronger. There is also evidence that fluoride strengthens the bones and thus may help to prevent such degenerative diseases as osteoporosis. Has nothing to do with teeth, but osteoporosis. Excessive intake of fluorine causes fluorosis, which is manifest in the mild state by mottled teeth and in a more severe state by enlarged bones. Oh, hey, as a medical journalist, I just can't accept that. I mean, there's too many things that are too far off the wall. I've got to go to another source. How about the Townsend newsletter, May 1990? Just recent information. This is a letter from doctors communicating with doctors. All right? The National Toxicology Program, now that sounds pretty good. Study fact sheet dated January 22nd, 1990, recent. Under the auspices of the United States Public Health Service, good, has linked fluoride to fluorosis and cancer. 1985 Procter & Gamble report, they've got a vested interest in this, obtained October 4th, 1989, from the Department of Health and Human Services, also links fluoride to cancer. John R. Lee, medical doctor, says the strength of the fluoride cancer link is greater than that which resulted in the banning of Alar, red dye number 3, or cyclamate. David Kennedy, DDS, San Diego, California, says fluorides do not reduce tooth decay. Is he the only one? Dr. Hardwick and D.M. Bunting of Turner Dental School says the changes in the number of lesions or cavities were not significant in 1 or 2 parts per million of fluoride supplementation. Why do we have fluoride in the water if it isn't working? Canada, the areas which report the lowest incidence in decay are the unfluoridated areas. I'm beginning to smell a rat. The National Institute of Dental Research found no difference in the incidence of tooth decay in children 5 through 17 raised in non-fluoridated, partially fluoridated, or fluoridated communities. Well, you and I know that we don't have as many tooth decays now as we did years ago. Other researchers have found the reduction in tooth decay to be closely related to the occupation and educational level of the parents. In other words, if mom says, Johnny, brush your teeth, he doesn't have tooth decays, right? My goodness. Let's go to the ultimate authority. Webster's Dictionary. Fluoride, a corrosive, poisonous, greenish, yellow, gaseous chemical element, the most reactive non-metallic element known, in forming fluorides with almost all other known elements. Now, as a medical journalist, I like to dig. I have to find out the whole story of fluoride. Why is it in our drinking water? And this is also included in the book, The Cancer Answer. And I find that in 1931 there was a gentleman that was employed by the American Can Company and Anaconda Aluminum Company to try to figure out how to get rid of a byproduct of the aluminum industry. His job was to figure out how to get rid of 50,000 tons of fluoride a year. He couldn't do it. Not until 1938. In 1938, this very same gentleman was employed by the Department of Health, the United States government. And so at that time he says, hey, do you know that although the teeth might become slightly mottled or discolored, that if you put fluoride in the drinking water, that it is entirely possible that we could reduce the amount of cavities? Do you know he sold that to the American government?
You just made that up.
I guess so. Or, that's what I used to believe. He just made it up. But the rather amazing thing is that we are all so gullible that even the scientists, even the medical doctors, even the dentists, all of us accepted the idea that fluoride in the drinking water is going to somehow help us with our teeth. And now, do you know the aluminum industry no longer has to figure out how to get rid of 50,000 tons of fluoride a year? They sell it to the municipalities. Now, all of these things you still have something that's missing. Something is missing. Why are we so gullible? Why didn't our scientists put a stop to it? Why did the medical doctors or the dentists accept it? Why is it something that we have? Why are we drinking fluoridated water? And I think I came up with the answer. I'm going to read something to you. Something that shocked me. Listen carefully. Sugar, salt, tobacco, aluminum, and fluoridated water over a period of years, with perhaps other slow poisons, will help to ensure that they expire before they retire. If there were fewer people bidding against each other, money or credit would keep its value. That's taken out of Keeping Our Money Healthy, published by the Federal Reserve Bank, New York City. We are drinking fluorinated water. Why? Because it has been put there on purpose by a consortium of banks whose desire it is to control the masses, not only of the United States, but of the entire world. Some of you might know this as the Illuminati. You might have heard that before. And there's some other startling things that I would like to present to you. I don't have time right now, but stick around afterwards and I'll present some other startling things to you. All right, so now we find that we can no longer depend upon the municipality to supply good water. They're not going to do it. We find what we need to do is we need to protect ourselves. There are two sources of pure water that I know of. One is fresh fruits and vegetables. If you can get the fresh fruits and vegetables, the water inside the fresh fruits and vegetables is pure water. The other source would be to secure a water purification system in your own home. Now, let me give you some advice. Some of you are depending upon bottled water for your good water. If you're depending on bottled water, do not depend on bottled water that is delivered to you in plastic containers. The reason you don't want to depend on the plastic container is within 8 hours after water has been put into the plastic container at room temperature, and that's where most of the water is found, the sunlight going through the clear plastic causes a chemical reaction between the H2O and the plastic so that it leaches out of the plastic a carcinogen. So that is in the water. And anytime you pick up a plastic container and drink it, and if you can taste plastic, what you're tasting is not the plastic, you're tasting the carcinogen, and the tongue is telling you, don't drink it. All right? So if you're going after bottled water, only go after the bottled water that is bottled in glass. Our scientists don't use plastic for their chemical studies, right? Because they react. Don't you use your plastic for storing your water. Go for a water purification system. You're going to find that you are going to need it. This year, you need it. Next year, you're going to need it worse. And the year after that is going to need it worse, and it's going to get worse rather than better. Go after a water purification system, one that you can control so that you can control the water in your own home. You need it. The next part of the healthy cell concept is called cell food. You see, the cells of the body rely upon us. We have the responsibility of doing the grocery shopping. The reason they rely upon us is because they cannot do the grocery shopping. They would like to be able to tell you what they need, but they can't even do that. They have to take what we give them and then try to figure out what to do. Imagine, if you can, they know their menu. They know exactly what they need. But we have never been told. Therefore, we don't even know how to do the shopping. That becomes a real problem. You see, we have been feeding these cells people food. And there's a difference between people food and cell food. show you a very simple way. If you had some beautiful dogs, you would feed it dog food, right? The best you could find. What about rabbits? You wouldn't feed rabbits dog food, would you? You'd feed it rabbit food. You've got 75 trillion cells. What are you going to feed them? Cell food. All we got to do is find, what do you need, you see. Now, what do you need? When I wrote the book, The Cancer Answer, I had a great experience because I found, contrary to popular belief, that all cells of the body have the very same menu. All human cells throughout the entire world, regardless of where you are, or what country you live in, or your nationality or anything else, all human cells need the same nutrients. Regardless of your age, you all need the same nutrients because each cell individually needs the same nutrients. And our scientists know what those nutrients are. They're not a secret. We just haven't been told. All right? Today I'm going to tell you the nutrients. And in fact, the best way to explain cell food would be to point out that if the cells had the opportunity of pushing the grocery cart through the grocery store, that would be the best way to find cell food. They don't have that opportunity. The first thing you would find is if the cells did push the grocery cart through the grocery store, they would not do the shopping in the middle of the grocery store. Not where you find the bottled, boxed, and canned things. These are all preserved things. These things came through a factory. And because they came through a factory, we find that they are less than what they were, the nutrients were at the beginning. You see, if the cells had the opportunity of doing the pushing of the grocery cart, they would go around the perimeter, because that's where you find the fresh fruits, vegetables, whole grains, fish, and fowl. This is presented in the book, The Cancer Answer. However, I had a rather exciting experience about 2 years ago. I was at the National Health Federation standing at my booth one day when a gentleman came by me. I recognized him. He recognized me. His name was Bob Blomberg. Some of you might know him, right? Bob Blomberg is a very interesting gentleman. He's also a certified reboundologist, meaning he came to take my course, and he became certified as a reboundologist. He came up to me and he says, "Al, I've got a brand new product." I says, "That's good. Congratulations." He says, "I'd like you to try it." I says, "Bob, do you know that's what everybody here would like me to do? They would all like me to try their product." He says, "Yeah, but this one's different." I says, "That's what they all say." He handed me a bottle. It was a white bottle. Had orange letters on it. He says, "I'd like you to try this." I opened the bottle up, I smelled it, and I says, "Can you change the smell?" Then I tasted it. I says, "Forget the smell, change the taste." Then I says, "Bob, you know that I wouldn't put anything into this body unless I really knew what it was." He says, "Well, Al, what I really want you to do is that I want you to tell me what's wrong with it." "Oh, I can do that." Because I had just finished writing the book and I knew what the cells needed and I'd like to try it out. So I says, "All right, you give me a list of the ingredients of this product and I'll tell you what's wrong with it." He says, "All right." So he handed me something like this. I said, "Thank you very much." I put it in my pocket and I went home. And when I got home at night, I opened up